Everyone, and this is a new video for the RoccoBot Predicts. If people don't know, I founded Functional Sportsaholic actually to predict NFL games and NBA games against the spread. It does quite well if we look at the historical performance since 2014. This is with respect to the NFL specifically at 62%. And I say roughly 62%. There's only been one season where I've been below. I think it was like a 57% somewhere in like 2015, 2016. But every season I've been above 60%. And most seasons I'm above 64%, but that one, quote unquote, the bad year, I was still above the pay line. I was at 62%. So far in 2019, and I only run games from weeks 4 through week 16 because I like to have the most consistent data possible. The locks, and what I have is 8 different engines taking different things into account. If every game rings up as a victory against the spread for a team, I consider that a lock. It has to be 8 of 8. It has to be a complete consensus there, but the locks are 26 and 19, so 57.8 so far this season. These are documented, by the way. If you don't believe them, I know these are pretty unbelievable numbers. I get it. I've been doing it for years. I've tried to build a business and people still don't believe it, so I've just kind of given up. I actually stopped publishing these things until I just got a suggestion to start creating these videos again. But these are all documented on the Get Paid podcast on the Underdog Podcast Network. I do game reviews, game previews every single week on this channel. So if you're curious, you can look back. You can look back in the whole numbers. But anyway, top 5 for the computer. What that means is regardless if they're locks or not, I take the top 5 bets every week. Those are 16 and 9 and 64% so far this NFL season. So doing quite well as usual, to be honest with you. The first thing I'm going to do, because sometimes people can't really wrap their head about spread and not spread. And when I do these game previews on and Get Paid, we pick against the spread. And so like, for example, New Orleans, Arizona this week, I was kind of going back and forth whether or not I was going to pick Arizona against the spread. Brad and I, my co-host Brad and I, both picked New Orleans to win the game, but we weren't sure who was going to cover the spread. And so then we invariably get these comments back, of course New Orleans is going to win the game, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm not saying they're not going to win the game. This is spread. But to alleviate some of that confusion, I'm going to do a couple things. A lot of you play in survivor pools. A lot of you play in confidence pools. And so if you do that, I wanted to put together kind of what my composite score is, along with, what my, in order from 1 to whatever we're at, I think 15, 14 or 15 this week, what the game's confidence level are. So let's look just quickly, and you can see the score predictions there, but what I want you to look at is the margin of victory on the top, over on the right. So this is my most confident to least confident in terms of RoccoBot. I don't necessarily agree with all of this, but again, RoccoBot's pretty good at this stuff. So you have Minnesota, who's already won the game. Again, that's document. If you don't believe me, you can go back and look at the Get Paid clip, the game preview. We predicted it. We predicted a close game. We actually picked Washington against the spread. Brad and I did. We went against the computer, but we picked Minnesota to win the game by 6 points, and they ended up winning by 10, but didn't cover the spread. But anyway, Minnesota, New England, Pittsburgh, Seattle, Jacksonville, LA, Houston, and Detroit as the winners there. And if we look forward to the rest of this, the games there, we have Buffalo over Philly, Indy, San Francisco, Tampa, New Orleans, Green Bay, LA. Now, New Orleans is down because this has a lot of Teddy Bridgewater data in there. If Breeze plays, I would bump this confidence level up quite a bit, and from what I understand, he will play. I do think Breeze will carve up this Arizona secondary, so I like I like New Orleans more and more in this game to even cover the spread, but definitely to win regardless. Now let's look at against the spread for my fellow betting enthusiasts and against the spread enthusiasts. Again, I'm going to go in level of confidence, but what I'm looking at in this graphic here is let me put this in layman's terms for people who aren't familiar with betting. Basically, let's just say that number for Seattle, the spread was 10. Let's say it was Seattle minus 10 versus Atlanta. Basically, what you're doing is you're spotting Atlanta 10 points. So if the game is 25, Seattle 25, Atlanta 20, well, Seattle did not win by 10 points, so Atlanta wins the spread even though Seattle wins the game. That's what that means, okay? Very high level here. But in order, in terms of confidence, Seattle is my pick. New England, they should be in white. I didn't highlight them, but New England over Cleveland. You can see the line through the Tampa Bay-Tennessee game. One of my personal rules is I need data for these things to be valid. Tennessee has a new starting quarterback in Ryan Tannehill that I think is better. I have not calibrated the computers for it, so I'm taking this off of RoccoBot's board. I'm taking this off of my board. It does predict Tampa Bay to win, but again, Tannehill is a much different quarterback, so I take that off. And you can see 2 lines below that, New York Jets. I don't have enough Sam Darnold data yet to bet this Jets game. You can see the Jets are actually highlighted in white, identifying him as the winner. That's a mistake as well. That should be actually Jacksonville highlighted as the winner. But again, I'm taking this off the board anyway. I'm not counting it towards the projections. The Chargers over Chicago. Look, Chicago, I know a lot of Chicago fans follow I love the defense, but the Chargers, there's a weakness in this defense right now that needs to be shored up. It's the run up the middle. Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler are great backs. I think this game favors the Chargers, and so does RoccoBot. You got Minnesota to cover over Washington, so you can see they've already actually missed that game. RoccoBot is 0-1 to start this week, but one of my rules too is I never bet Thursday games. That's my personal thing. It's just kind of a goofy thing. Again, I'm looking for consistency. I also never bet London games for what that's worth. You got Buffalo over Philadelphia. And then to round out the picks here, Pittsburgh over Miami. Now, I personally disagree with this. I'm in a couple of pick'em contests. I actually picked Miami in that beefy 14.5 point spread over Pittsburgh. So I'm betraying Rocco this week. I'm going on my own. I'm going rogue. Kansas City actually over Green Bay in the spread, but again, Matt Moore starting. I don't know what I'm going to get out of him, so I'm just taking this off my board. Cincinnati over the Rams. I think that's madness, but again, it's a London game. I should probably scratch that line out as well. Then you have Houston over Oakland, Carolina over San Francisco, and then the bottom two are scratched out just because the margin of victory is within 0.2 of a point. That's way too slim for me. You would have the Giants of Detroit basically locked up and even according to the spread, though the Detroit Lions are picked to win the game outright. And then same with Indianapolis. Once the spread is factored in, Denver is a little bit too close for comfort there. So there you go. That takes me through an episode. Again, these are kind of emotionless, robotic picks. Over time, RoccoBot is good. I look at it like a 401k. Yeah, he's going to have bad weeks. It's going to have good weeks. But over time, from your perspective, it just goes up and up and up. So that's what I do. As always, if you're a bettor, bet at your own peril. I don't agree with all these picks. I'm not endorsing you that you wager money on all these things. RoccoBot's pretty good over time, but if you're somebody who's wagering your mortgage or something on games, don't do that, okay? I want that liability. You shouldn't have that liability. And if I start to hear some negative stuff, I'm just going to remove these videos altogether. So anyway, if you are better, bet responsibly. Please, please, please don't bet your mortgage. Don't bet your food check. That's ridiculous to do. I wouldn't do this. I do this as a hobby, and I encourage you all to have a hobby as well. Just don't have a hobby that takes over your life, like this YouTube channel's taking over mine. But anyway, that's an episode. Give me a follow on Twitter. I'm at TFS_Sean. I appreciate everything, guys, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.